Today, we are talking with one of the few legends in worship music. Dennis Jernigan has been around for so many years, seen so many things, sang so many songs, written an incredible number of songs. And we have a very special relationship with him at PraiseCharts, and you're going to find out why in this interview. But I think you're going to love this. We're going to take a little tour of the Dennis Jernigan farm, his home, a little bit of his family life, his studio, just the backwoods where all this great music has come to life over the many years. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Stick with me as we talk with Dennis Jernigan. Here we go. Dennis, PraiseCharts is kind of like a little second home for you. We just feel like you are family to us, and we're so grateful to have you on this show with me today.
I am grateful to be part of the Praise Charts family. Thank you for doing this.
Yes. I don't know if many people know, but one of the things that has made us so well connected over the years is probably it's almost 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. We assumed the administration of your catalog, Shepherd's Heart Music, and so we have been able to carry songs like "You Are My All in All," "Who Can Satisfy," "Thank You, Lord." I mean, and all the way up to how many songs would it be? I mean, we all know maybe 10 or 12 very well-known kind of global songs, but you've written a lot of songs over the years. Do you know how many?
Yeah, I had someone ask me recently, and I've never done this before. I went on a count, and I
Mm-hmm.
lost count after about 3,000. So I have somewhere between 3 and 4,000 songs that you'll never hear while on this earth.
Yes.
But as I like to say, when I get to heaven, I'm going to kick Keith Green off the piano for a while and take my time.
Yes, for sure. Well,
But
you know what, though? The reality is, great songwriters of history have certainly written thousands of songs, of which we probably only know a handful of them. But this is the work of great songwriters. And you, I would count among the great songwriters of the history of Christian worship music. I mean, even along with the hymn writers, Isaac Watts and Newton, and lots of Charles Wesley. I mean, I'm not really equating you quite to that level, but almost, Dennis, in the modern age, you are a giant in our worship music world. Well, I honor you for that.
you're making me cry before we get started.
I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. That
Yes.
means so much to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for us to recognize that, yes, there are incredible hymn writers that go back hundreds of years, like the Charles Wesleys, the Isaac Newtons, all of that. But then we can also recognize today, like we've got guys like Matt Redman and Keith Getty and Kristen Getty and Dennis Jernigan. These are the modern day hymn writers. And also, I mean, those guys of our history, they have written thousands of songs, of which we've only heard a few. We know Amazing Grace and, How Great Thou Art and these classic songs. But those songwriters, like you, have sat in the darkness of their songwriting rooms and worked out the melodies and the lyrics. And so you've certainly done that, hey?
I appreciate that. I believe the Lord will give me a song a day if I will listen. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that He's more than willing to pour Himself out on us. And one of my life verses is Psalm 45:1. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer.
Right.
My heart overflows with a good theme. I address my verses to the King. So if I'm ready to listen and write down what I hear,
Yeah.
He's more than willing to pour it out on me. So I just have believed for over 40 years now that He'll give me a song a day if I listen. I just don't always listen.
Yes. Beautiful. Hey, Dennis, I thought of something fun. It was June 2023, and I got to come and visit you on your little family estate. It's a beautiful place in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And you didn't know this, but as I was following you around your property, I had my iPhone and I was just grabbing a few pictures because I thought, I don't know when, but I want to remember this moment. And so I just went back and grabbed some of those shots. This was one of the first ones that I took. We're sitting there having a chat with Brad Henderson, a mutually good friend of ours,
And
and you're walking towards this old barn off in the back of your property. Do you want to tell me about what this place is that we are walking to?
sure, it's a combination of barn, studio, office, and play area for my kids. When we moved there when our kids were still pretty young, and we wanted them to not want to go anywhere else. We wanted all their friends to want to come to our house. So we had half court basketball, we had ping pong, we had air hockey, we had a pool table, and they could even roller skate out there. So I built my studio, my man cave actually,
Yes.
in that barn, and so it served many purposes. But it's like one of our family gathering places as well as a studio.
Yeah, I think that's something I want people to know about you is not only have you written so many incredible songs and sung these songs all over the world, but you have such a heart for your family and I really share that heart with you because I'm also a grandpa myself, a much younger grandpa than you are. And I live on a little, plot of land with an acre and some beautiful trees. And I think the same thing. Like I want my kids to want to come home and to have memories that dad was around and dad connected with them and engaged. And I really saw that when I was at your place, watching how you integrated with your family, with your kids, with your grandkids. It was like that was such a priority for your life.
Yeah, we're very intentional with our kids and with our grandkids. I've taken it to the extreme. I've written stories, fantasy novels for my grandchildren.
Yes.
I've created a forest for them that's got over 2 miles worth of trails. It's got statues of dragons and unicorns, and each of the trails in the forest has a street sign, an actual street sign, with the name of one of my grandchildren as the name of that trail. So they read the stories, they go and spend time in the forest, and every time they talk to me on the phone or whatever, they always say, "We want to come to the forest of Bren." That's what we call it.
I love
And in
it.
Grandpa and Grandma's forest, it's Christmas all year round. We have an old cedar tree in the campground area of the forest right in the center that we keep decorated all year round. So the kids love it. And
Yes.
so we're just very intentional. In fact, my wife's birthday was just this past week, and I gave her a 6 foot dragon.
Oh my goodness.
Totally weird, I know, but
I love it.
she just she loved it, and it's she's going to name it, and it's going to go in the next book for the kids, and it's going to be hidden somewhere in the forest that only the Jernigan grandkids are going to know about.
What a legacy. Okay, so I actually took some more pictures as I was walking along. We walked up to this barn, this studio, this man cave, as Dennis shares about. And then you open the door, and this is the that you see. It's like there is a studio, a building inside the building, and then it is laden with all these various awards and letters and pictures. Tell me a little bit about what we're looking at as we've just entered the door of this space now.
Well, the main thing that you're seeing is some of my first few albums. My wife framed the CDs in a very beautiful way and gave them to me as my birthday gift one year.
Ah,
And the first time I charted on the Billboard charts, she framed that and put that up there for me as well. And then just to the right of that, you can't see it, but I call it my wall of fame. Just
yeah.
different artists I've been with through the years, pictures with them. And so those are just precious memories for me, and hopefully a legacy for my grandkids too.
Hmm. So much. Now, if we look in behind there, I mean, this is really getting into the backwoods of the Dennis Jernigan factory. But this is like just all the stuff, books, CDs. memorabilia. It's all there ready to pour out to the world.
Yeah, until recently, we had a bunch of cassettes as well. And if you don't know what a cassette is, ask your grandpa. But we finally got rid of cassettes, and very few people even ask for CDs anymore. And we're out of
Yes.
stock of most CDs. But that's what you're seeing there is just a back stock of certain
Yes.
CDs we
Yes.
have available for those who want them.
Well, Brad, I
Very,
hope Brad's okay with me having a picture of him, but I couldn't have this picture without my friend Brad Henderson in the shot. This is inside the studio that's inside the whole barn. This is the place where the work that I see you've got a desk there and a computer, and then on the other side, you're sitting, probably almost looking with this kind of view right now. This is where
yeah,
your songwriting happens.
I'm looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right there.
Yep. Now, I remember as I was browsing around this room, I came across this shot, and this is so rare to me. It must be such a treasure for you. But actually, the president of the United States personally gave you a letter to Dennis, and I can't quite read the note of this, but I'm just thinking like the honor that you would have to be able to impact people at the highest levels of power in our world. You're shaping them at that level. Do you want to tell me a little bit about this little memorabilia on the wall you've got there?
Yeah, I happened to do a worship concert ministry time in Washington, D.C., and it was a packed house. And I had written a song for President Bush called I Salute You. And the
Wow.
story behind it is I watched a TV broadcast of him walking by the troops and the troops saluting him and following him with their eyes. That just did something deep in me. So I wrote a song for the president called I Salute You, and I sang it in Washington, D.C. And I said, if anyone knows President Bush personally, please let him know he has a song.
Hmm.
And probably 3 weeks later, I get the lyrics of my song that I'd written for him framed, sent back to me with a special message. And then I got to do the National Day of Prayer theme song 2 years in a row. So I've had quite a big ministry actually in Washington, D.C. I ministered at the Pentagon 4 times.
Wow.
And but just a special message from the president was a highlight of my life in a lot of ways.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I salute you. Well, then around and we're heading outside of the studio and we're walking back towards the farm. Now, this is spread over several acres. Many acres. There's a pond and there's corrals and lots of places for the grandkids to roll all around. But I was just very impacted by just the family, the beautiful family nature that you had sitting out on the front porch. I can imagine how many memories you have sharing with Melinda and your kids and the grandkids. Just an aspect of it seems like this is the real heart of Dennis Jernigan looking at pictures like this. What do you see
It
here?
is. When I see that, I get full of joy.
Right.
It, I have 13 grandkids so far. We
Yeah.
expect more. We never know when they're going to have one, but it's just so fun to hear
Mm-hmm.
their perspective on life and for them to ask stories about not only their parents' lives growing up, but about my life. And just, I take great value, or I find a lot
Yeah.
of just, it does me good, is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say, in my
Yeah.
soul, to impart to them memories I had as a child, and my relationship even with my own grandparents, what that meant to me. So I'm feeding into the next generation,
Mm-hmm.
and they're already taking it to heart. And some of my grandkids are writing songs. Some of them are playing instruments already,
Yeah.
and there are 2 or 3 of them that have already been in school musicals. So we're leaving
Beautiful.
not only a music legacy, but a legacy of faith.
Yes.
So
One more
I
picture that I've got here. This is the woman who has stood by you for so many years. She's the one who shares this dream. Do you want to just brag a little bit on Melinda? She has been so faithful and such a rock beside you for so many years.
Melinda is the most amazing woman on the
Yes,
planet Earth.
yes,
We just celebrated 41 years of marriage, and she has been the rock of the
yes.
family. Uh, in the early days of our ministry, because I couldn't do what I did without her, but in the early days of our ministry, we traveled a lot as a family. We had a van and pulled a trailer behind with all the products. Then my mom and dad came on board, and they would take all the merchandise to. They literally drove all over the entire country, while we would fly, and just they would meet us there. So we got the whole family involved. But Melinda, as the kids got older and got more involved in activities at school, she stayed home and kept the home fires burning while I was out
Hmm.
on the road. And we tried to be very intentional in how many times I went out to minister. I didn't want to be gone for more than 4 days at a time. So I would say, take a trip to Virginia, and I would take one of the kids with me, and the kids took turns going with me on those trips. But Melinda made it a point to keep the home, uh, and made the kids remember to pray for Dad,
Yeah,
and help them feel very included in what I was doing. Is what I'm trying to say.
yeah. You know, Dennis, I think I've shared this with you before, but it was back in 1994. That's when I started in my own worship ministry. I became a halftime worship pastor at a little church in Langley, British Columbia. And that is when I started listening to your music, believe it or not, on the cassette tapes. I would stick them in my car. And the thing about a cassette tape that's different than Spotify these days is you'd find a cassette, and if it had the music, it would just keep rolling around and around and around. You didn't get to span off into 1,000 other songs of automated playlists that Spotify was making. It was just those 11 songs on repeat, and they sort of would embed in your, almost in your emotional psyche. They just became a part of who you were. And so I can remember songs like Break My Heart, Oh God, certainly You're My All in All, Great is the Lord Almighty. I mean, these songs would play in my car many times when I was leading worship, and I would feel so nervous, so angsty on a Sunday morning at 5 a.m., thinking about what was ahead of me in that day. And I would drive out to the river and just set my car right in front of the river and then turn it off and just put the heat on and let those songs just kind of like pour over me. Specifically, it was that Break My Heart album. That's why I feel so connected to you, because you, passively had such an impact on shaping my heart for worship in those early days. And then the extension of that story that's kind of funny is I was so impacted by you that I thought I need to bring Dennis to Langley, British Columbia. I'm gonna call somewhere. I'm gonna find the email address, the phone number, something. So I connected with you. You had no idea who I was. PraiseCharts hadn't existed. And the word I got back was we would be happy to come as long as you have tickets, plane tickets for me and my 9 children, or however many children you had. So that kind of made it a little difficult for us to make that deal happen. But that was where you were at back in those days, is I travel with my kids and we do things together. Is that right?
That was right. We sorry about that.
That's all right.
We just we're, like I said, we were very intentional, family
Yes.
first, and we continued that to this day.
Yes.
And I will forego going a trip to the White House if it means missing something of my grandchildren.
Wow.
And so
Yes.
they know that they have my priority,
Yeah.
that they are my priority. So
Dennis, I
sorry
was
about.
no, no, no problem. All right, so I got one more picture here. I'm sitting in your kitchen at the table, and one of your kids had this idea. Let's order Chick-fil-A and bring it in for all the kids. So we're all sitting around the table, and you've got kids crawling on your lap and hanging on your neck and whispering and kissing you across the table and telling you how much they love you. And I just was like mesmerized watching. I took this one picture right in that moment. This little tiger wraps his arms around you. I mean, this isn't all your grandkids, but it just represents the love. Even the shirt you're wearing. I mean, your part of your identity seems to be like, I am living for this next generation. Is that right?
Exactly right. And
Yeah.
that that picture encapsulates all my grandchildren.
Yeah.
They they just run to me and they pile on me.
Yes.
Uh, they don't recognize me as being an old person.
Yes.
They just know I'm grandpa and that I will pretty much do whatever they want me to do.
Yes. Yes.
That's
So incredible.
part of my plan is just I want to be available, whatever they want to do. If I'm physically able to do it, I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
So I play baseball with them, I play football with them, I play hide and seek. Now we go to the forest and play hide and seek in the forest, and that's a kick in the pants right there
Hmm.
because those little suckers can hide so well.
They hide behind the dragons.
They hide behind everything, and it
Hmm.
takes me an hour to find them.
Hmm.
So I have a little John Deere Gator that I drive around, and I search the forest that way.
Yes.
That saves my energy. So
Yes. I'm really hoping, Dennis, that some young songwriters, some young worship leaders will be reading this because this, or will be watching this, because I feel like we have just a rare opportunity to get up and close and personal with someone who's lived the long life of worship leading. You are someone who is not at the beginning of your career, but just really thinking about the end. And I wonder if you could give us a little perspective of what goes on in your mind as you think about all the songs you've written, perhaps songs you still have in your heart, and you think about your family and what is going to live beyond you. I know that you're very intentional about this, and I'm wondering if you would just share a little bit about some of the plans that you are making. I think you even have plans for songs or books or things to release even after you have passed on. Is it possible that you could share a little bit of some of what goes on in your heart in making these
sure, I
plans?
would love to. Just so your viewers will know, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2019, and that was like a kick in the gut.
Hmm.
I had to totally look at my life in a brand new way in my ministry. And it's not a death sentence by any means, but it did cause me to really focus in on
Hmm.
what my legacy is. And what I've always done since the beginning is every time I write a song or receive a song, I write the circumstances, the story behind the song. I date it and write the circumstances. So got this, I've got the story behind every single song I've ever written. And I began a podcast several years ago where I share the story behind the song, then share the song. I did that for my grandkids. But
Hmm.
when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's and recognized it could affect my life in a very drastic way, and I wanted to keep providing for my wife and my grandchildren and my children, I went through a lot of my old demos, and I'm still discovering songs I'd forgotten about
Hmm.
that I've purposed to make. At this point, I've got 8 albums ready to go in case
Wow.
anything should happen to me, with the plan of every October releasing a new album of 10 songs along with the lead
My.
sheets and the story behind the songs, so that if I should pass away,
Yeah.
no one will know I'm gone for like 10 years because Melinda will keep putting out new music.
Yes.
or my kids will keep putting out new music.
Yeah.
So it's it's a labor of love. I love doing that,
Yeah.
and that's just part of the thing. One of the things God has called me to do is prepare in just making those 8
Yeah.
albums.
Yeah. I wonder
And
if
by the
it's almost like a gift. Like even myself, and I don't have Parkinson's, or I mean, I'm a reasonably healthy person, but having that perspective in our lives of like, what if we were gone tomorrow or next week or in a month, and how does it shape how you live today? And you're just in a place where you are very intentionally living with the perspective of, I might not be here tomorrow or next week or next month. And am I ready? And, even beyond the question, of course, am I ready? Am I going to heaven? And am I going to be with Jesus? Of course, you want to have those questions answered. But then, like, am I ready? Are my kids ready? As what is the legacy? What's the story? What is the impact? What are they going to think of? Will I have spent the time with them? Will they have memories of me just locked up in a studio, just writing songs and being gone on weekends and always gone? Or do they have the memories of me playing hide and seek in the forest? I mean, you're making those decisions even in this age that you're in right now, where you have Parkinson's. And I mean, you're not 40 years old anymore, but you're still out there with the kids. And I think it's an incredible perspective that any of us young worship leaders, and I'm hardly young anymore, but there's so many 15-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 25. I hope you will listen to this conversation and think about the perspective of your entire life and think, what could you do to live a life of integrity and character, and press on for the long haul to be in a place like perhaps some of the legacy that Dennis has left. And that's kind of like the story that I really wanted to glean from you today.
No, I appreciate that. It's very important for me. We
Hmm.
were intentional with our children. We went out of our way to create memories for them. That to this day, my 9 children are their each other's best friends,
Yes.
even though they're all for the most part married.
Yeah.
They still talk about core events in our lives, and now I'm seeing that passed on to my grandchildren. So I'm even more. I'm like on supersonic drive with my grandkids, being very intentional in showing up for their soccer games, watching their musical, uh, listening to their song. Uh, in fact, I have 2 granddaughters that live in Australia, and Melinda and I spent January in Australia. And one of my granddaughters came up to me one day and said, "Jeepaw, I bought a notebook for you and a notebook for myself so that we can write songs together."
Ah,
So we wrote a song for one of her cousins in the States. His name's Theo. He turned 5, and we wrote a song about him turning 5 and recorded it on GarageBand and posted it on YouTube. And it's just one of those things she'll never forget.
yes.
And so it also blessed the entire family. And I think you
Yeah.
can probably watch it on YouTube. Just go to Theo's 5th birthday or something like that with Dennis Jernigan, and you'll just see we're very practical in the things we do to
Yeah.
include our grandchildren in our lives.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Hey, I want to take a little bit of time to look at some of the music you have, your music, of course, and so many classics. I mean, Dennis, you have been inside the depths of praise charts ever since we began back in 1998, with incredible songs. Obviously, "You Are My All in All" has been like a life song for you. It's really helped to carry your ministry and provide for your family, and create such an incredible song that continues to be so relevant year after year after year. I mean, even today, any church could sing that song and feel like it could fit right in with some of the best of our modern worship songs. In fact, I don't know if you know this, Dennis, but Travis Cottrell and Tommy Prophet have just been in the studio in the last couple of weeks, and we're releasing our own brand new version of You Are My All in All. It's coming out in January. I am so
Really?
excited about it. It's going to be absolutely epic. I can't wait for you to hear it. And there's so many things that can be done with that song. But I don't know how familiar you are with Tommy Prophet. He is a legend of a producer.
He
Yes.
he is he did a version
Yes.
of All in All that blows my mind.
I know.
It it's simple yet it's massively deep.
Yes.
It makes me stand in awe.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe I had anything to do with that song
Yeah.
when I hear his version of it. And Travis, I love his voice,
Yes.
and we've been friends for a long time. So I feel so honored to even know that. I want
Yeah.
to hear it now.
I know, I know. We will definitely send it to you because, like you say, Dennis, Tommy already had done a version of this. And in fact, Travis, who works closely with us, Travis is a PraiseCharts artist now, and we're recording several albums with him. I mean, we've got numerous new projects already coming out, but Dennis has said that version of You Are My All in All with Tommy Prophet, that is the one that he takes to his stage on a Sunday morning when he wants to lead that song. And then Tommy agreed that he would recut that song again and just bring a new level of grace and power to it. So I'm so excited to wait for that. It's actually going to be part of a full project that we're going to call Rewind, and we're taking some of the great songs that have been written over the last 25 years. But You Are My All in All is the first single that is being released from that project. So we're very proud to have
Oh,
you headlining that for us.
that makes my day right there. Thank
Hmm,
you.
you're so welcome. But then I was just looking at the list just now. Who can satisfy my soul? And I mean, that is the next song. In fact, in praise charts, it sits even above You Are My All in All. It's such an incredible, powerful song. You can bet if I have any say in this, it's probably going to come on that album as well. You're going to find two places for Dennis Jernigan on this cut because such an incredible song. That chorus, I mean, are those some of the
It,
moments of worship leading that you've probably had leading a song
it's
like
one
that?
of my favorite songs to lead with.
Yeah,
I've seen so many versions. In fact, one of my favorite versions came from Lee University from many years ago, where
yeah,
they sing the song for over 10 minutes because
really.
the Holy Spirit just falls and they can't
Yes.
stop singing.
No.
And then they did a version, the Lee University alumni during COVID, where they did each person who was a part of it did a part and they put it all together,
Yeah, on
singed it
video.
all together. And it's magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
It, it's one of my favorite versions of that song now.
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, I think of Thank You, Lord. I mean, I led that song in 1996, 97, and just loved it. Here we are right now as we're recording this live. We're giving and then in the USA, and the song continues to come around as a great song of gratitude to the Lord. But such a powerful melody. I mean, I don't know how. Well, I think I know how. Is you're saying you're just the song receiver, right? You're just listening for these
I
melodies
consider
and
myself
lyrics.
a song receiver and I'm
Yeah.
just ready to listen.
Yes. So
So
beautiful.
I've heard so many versions of Thank You. One of my favorites is a group in, well, the whole nation of Uganda seems to know that song. And I ran into a
Huh.
man from Uganda a few years ago, and he said, "You wrote that song?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's like our church's national anthem in the nation of Uganda.
Wow. Wow.
Everybody knows it, everybody sings it." Then we went to Korea a few years ago, Melinda and I, and we did so many interviews, and we got to minister in front of over 100,000 people in a 2-week period, just because their favorite song in the body of Christ there is "You're My All in All."
Yeah.
So I've I, I've just been to so many different places and heard different versions of my music. It makes me happy when somebody doesn't know I wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes me know that it's focusing their eyes on Jesus,
Yeah. Well,
and that's
truly, these songs, like, they take on a life of themselves. They become like your children. They grow up, they move to
very
another
much.
country, and now they're adopted by other people, and these are all your grandkids,
Yeah,
impacting the entire world. So that's beautiful. Let's talk just a few minutes about some of the new music, which clearly, this latest album, which is called Sanctuary here. And now I'm realizing, well, this is just one of nine that you have ready to release over the next, 9 or 10 years. So you have so much music in your heart to release, but this is the latest that is live. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about this, and maybe we can focus in on a couple of songs?
yeah, I love this album for so many reasons. It includes songs I've recorded since I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and you'll hear the degradation of my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the song "Tried by Fire" is very personal. It came out of one of my children's lives, and I can't share the details of what happened, but it was a year's worth of trauma and a
Hmm.
year's worth of healing. And that
Hmm.
song "Tried by Fire" came for him. Uh, the song "Speechless," uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's so happy. It makes me happy to sing that song. And what's so funny is it's one of my wordiest songs ever,
Hmm.
but it's called "Speechless," which I
Yeah.
hope people catch that. But
Yes.
it's just so fun. And the song "Relentless." I was watching the movie Slumdog Millionaire, and uh, not to belabor the point, but the main characters, Jamal and Latika, were separated when children. Jamal searched for her his entire life, and when he found her, he realized she had been ravaged by life. She had a scar across her face, and the first time they embrace, he kisses her on the scar.
Mm-hmm.
And that just reminded me so much of the massive nature of God's love for me,
Mm-hmm.
that he was relentless.
Hmm.
He has pursued me. And
Mm-hmm.
so that song is a favorite of mine on the record.
Beautiful.
Uh, the song Atom Bomb is a devastating song. It's more a song of ministry. It's in my Parkinson's voice, but it's raw, it's emotional,
Hmm.
it's it's it will break hearts,
Hmm.
but in a good way.
Yeah.
Uh, then the song called "I Choose Joy" was written directly because of my battle with Parkinson's. Uh, I believe God causes all things to work together for our good, even Parkinson's. So that's how we're choosing to view our lives. And the what's the next song after "I
You
Choose
have got them
Joy"?
all here. Always be
"Always
grateful.
Be Grateful" was written for one of my grandsons the day he was born. If I, my thought was, as I was driving home from Joplin to Muskogee, he was born in Joplin, Missouri, and his dad's a worship leader. His wife is my daughter, and they've raised their children so beautifully. But I thought, what if I'm not around? What message do I want to leave to Theo? And all the way home on the 2 hour drive from Joplin to Muskogee, all I could hear was "Be grateful, always be
Hmm.
grateful." You can either live in the past or you can live in the present, but always be grateful for what you have. Don't belabor or worry about the things you don't have.
Hmm.
And so then the song "Sanctuary" was inspired by "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And
Hmm.
when you hear it, you'll think, was that part of that movie? But just the fact that the name of the Lord is a strong, mighty tower where the righteous can run and be safe. I've learned so many of the covenant names God gives himself, and one of them is sanctuary. And so that's why I called the album Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And Run
Yeah.
to the Arms of Jesus uh, was inspired by an old Twyla Paris song. Uh, I can't even remember the name of it now, but when
Hmm.
you hear my song, you'll realize, hey, that's the same message of that Twyla Paris song.
Yeah.
And I make no bones about it. It's just me pouring out my heart, saying, look at all the people around you. They need Jesus just as much as the next person. It doesn't matter what they're dealing with, it doesn't matter what trauma level they're at. The answer is Jesus
Yeah.
for all of them. So, and I end that album with, I believe it's called Oh Give Thanks.
Yes.
Uh, and that song I wrote in 1983, believe it or not. And it's one of my
Yes.
favorite songs I've ever received. And I
Huh.
just now I'm putting it on a recording. So
You
it
have had that song sitting for 41 years and never released.
never.
Just waiting.
I made a demo just a couple of years before I got Parkinson's, and I'm so glad I did because it's a joyful song. It represents my attitude very well. It's one of my favorite verses is Psalm 107, 1 and 2. Oh, give thanks to the Lord for he is good, for his love is everlasting. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from the hand of the adversary. And I couldn't think of a better way to end the album. You go from being devastated in atom bomb to giving thanks to the Lord for having
Hmm.
gone through the devastation that you went through during the atom bomb period.
Hmm.
So God is good at picking up the pieces and helping us deal with the debris of life.
Yes.
And so that's the picture I wanted to paint with this particular recording. So I hope people
It's
will
almost like
disregard.
a picture of your life because I know Dennis. Life has not just been a smooth highway for you. You have wrestled. You have had incredible, opposition in so many deeply personal ways that could easily have leveled any other person who had any measure of weakness in them would have just like given in, thrown in the towel, been like, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of the church. I've had enough of people, the music industry, all of that. It's a wonder to me that you have pressed through and stayed true to the course that you're on over so many years. Do you think you could give us a little window into, I don't know if like I was just to ask you, could you take me into a time where you really felt the wrestle or perhaps the temptation or the question of, do I keep doing this? Is this really worth it?
Yeah, I've rarely shared this publicly, but I came out of a background of homosexuality, same sex attraction, and I don't want that to scare people off
Yeah.
or away from listening to what I have to say. But I believe Jesus on November 7th, 1981, during a second chapter of Acts concert, which was a tremendous time of worship, God set me free, gave me a brand new identity, gave me my
Hmm.
wife 2 years later, and then began to pour music into my life. And at one point, I served on the board of directors for the world's largest ministry to those struggling with same sex attraction. And
Hmm.
I was on the board for like 5 years. And I made a trip to Jamaica, Melinda and I did. And I shared my story like 11 times in 4 days and impacted well over 1 million people. And I did an interview with one of their national newspapers, and they asked me a question of what I thought about the president's stance on same sex marriage. And I said, well, he's I believe he's deceived. I love the president. I pray for him, which is true, but I believe he's deceived because he's messing with the foundation of our culture. And when you mess with the foundation, it threatens the entire culture. And the headline on the paper the next day said, ex-gay American says President Obama is deceived. And I came back to a firestorm in which I was really raked over the coals by everybody from the New York Times to a lot of gay publications, and was even asked to step down by the president of the board of directors, and which that ministry dissolved about a year later, which I was so heartbroken over. But I was shunned by a lot of churches and ministries because of the statement that went out that I didn't even write. I had nothing to apologize for. And the statement was written for me that was published. And that was a devastating time for me that I'll never forget. But Melinda and I decided, even if the church turns its back on us, which is what it seemed like was happening in so many ways, and we're going to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. People still need Jesus. And so we began ministering out of our home, and for a lot of different reasons. We've done this for, since the late 80s even. One night a week, we have a time of worship and ministry in our home, and we consider our home a hospital for Jesus. And we invite hurting people of all ages, all backgrounds, and what happens in the Jernigan living room stays in the Jernigan living
Yeah.
room. In other
Yeah.
words, John 8:32, you'll know the truth will set you free. The first step towards truth is always our own honest confession. And so we give people the opportunity to get honest. They get into our living room, they meet Jesus in a new way. He alters their life, gives them a brand new perspective, because true creativity, even to me, is learning to see life from God's point of view rather than my human point of view.
Yeah.
And so uh, I say all that to say that just due to my testimony, it's felt like an uphill battle for so much of the way. And that's why I have so many songs like If I Could Just Sit With You a While, Shoulder to Cry On My Knees, just songs of deep, heart wrenching agony, uh, because I've been accosted physically by the gay community several times. I've been called names. I've been mocked publicly. Uh, that's not, I don't need anybody's self pity. I'm nobody's victim. I, I don't want to play the victim card. I'm a victor because of who I serve. And Jesus, I've just kept my eyes fixed on Jesus. And the best advice I ever received was seek Jesus and not a ministry. So I've tried to do that. Just anytime anything like that has arisen, and even with raising our children, when we would have conflict, we would always come back to the point of what's God's point of view? How do we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus? And the reason I share that, because I know you have a lot of worship leaders, young worship leaders who are watching, seek Jesus and not a ministry, because if you seek Jesus, ministry will seek you out. And that's what we found to be true over the years. We never had a concert promoter. We never had anything like that. We just had someone who managed my booking for me. And I just went where I was invited for the most part, and never sold a ticket to a single event that I can recall. But by seeking Jesus, people began to knock down my door to get to me. Uh, that's enough about that. I
Wow.
hope I answered the question.
Yeah. Well, you know what? What I do know and what I can hear is that you have carried a message that's very deeply personal and deeply yeah, and yet even beyond the message of of your life and lifestyle and all of that, you seem to always be focusing on the primary message is pointing people to Jesus. Even looking at that song, "You Are My All in All." I mean, that song isn't about particularly any societal issues or choices or heterosexuality or homosexuality. That's actually not the primary message. The primary message is pointing people to Jesus and bringing all people to that. And then, but that has come with a wrestle for you. And I know, a lot of personal attack and I feel sorry for that. I feel sorry that people perhaps have missed the 99% focal message of your life is Jesus is my all in all. And then that's all backed up by this story that we've shared even here in the last 45 minutes of you and your family and your wife and your grandkids and the forest and the hide and seek and the presidents and just the serving and even like doing concerts and not selling tickets and just going to the entire world. It's an incredible story that, quite frankly, turns the entire way of our current modern music industry on its head. It's baffling now to look back on this from 2024 and think, how can a guy do it that way? Like, they don't do it that way anymore. It's all social media and push me and, get my face out there and sell tickets and promote and me. and, uh, and you have modeled a life that's a different way and you've pressed through the fire.
I I wouldn't. I don't think I would do anything differently. I love my life,
Mm-hmm.
even all the hardships. It's helped me. A great way to look at it is I would never understand or completely enjoy the sweetness of the rain if I had never gone through the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm grateful. I give thanks for all things and in all things,
Mm-hmm.
even for the persecution. And I've lived real physical
Mm-hmm.
persecution. Even through that, I can give God thanks for it
Yes.
because it's led me back to step one.
Yeah.
Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you're struggling with, regardless of what your story is, regardless of what your political leaning is, Jesus is the answer for every question asked. I
Mm-hmm.
really do believe that.
Mm-hmm. I know you
If we
do.
boil it all down to
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
it's the answer.
Dennis, thank you for being real and vulnerable with us here in this and letting me share your story through pictures, through words, through songs. And I just want you to know that we are here along this journey with you. I'm so proud to be able to carry your songs and I am so excited. I probably am not more excited about any other song that we are releasing than "You Are My All in All" in January. And it's literally like hot off the press right now in the studio in mixing. I can't wait to share it with you. I have no doubt that when that one is done, we are going to be doing "Who Can Satisfy" because I love that song so much. And then I hope that maybe some of that music can even just help to bring a little light on this new stuff that you are still pouring out. And
That's right.
so we are here with you and so proud and honored to come alongside of you, Dennis, with Shepherd's Heart Ministry and Praise Charts. We've been together for about 15 years now, and I hope that the days can continue in the future, even perhaps beyond you, when one day you pass on the legacy to your grandkids. I hope that we can still be carrying the legacy of your music in Praise Charts even. So It's an
You
honor to
don't
do
know how
this
much
with you.
I appreciate that. I'm
Yeah.
honored to be a part of the Praise Charts family, and I
Hmm.
appreciate all you've done for me. And I, I just am. I'm grateful. I don't know what
Grateful.
else to say.
Yeah, that's all we can say. I mean, there's a song, Grateful. That's exactly what you're saying. You're just driving down home and realizing at the end of the day, that's the words that you have left is we're just grateful. And I'm certainly grateful to you and appreciate the relationship that we have. So young worship leaders, if you are watching, I hope you will have pressed through this entire conversation and just listened. And even as we finish out here, to just ponder your life, ponder the deep seated values that you have. If you're a dad of young kids, and just pondering the decisions that you might make to be like, am I going to go off and pursue another opportunity? Or, am I going to just pour in another little opportunity to wrestle with my grandkids or go out and play with them on the tractor, or whatever it is that you have, that your wife, your kids, your grandkids, I mean, that's the foundation out of which a life can pour out of. So, and then pointing to Jesus in it all. So that's the legacy you live, Dennis. And I'm happy to share that story and hopefully impact it so that it rolls out in future generations of worship leaders. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dennis. And God bless you as you continue there in your songwriting studio. I hope there's still a few more songs to come out of that space that you're in. You write incredible music and have such a great heart, and we honor you today.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you,
Okay.
Ryan.
Bless you all. See you then next time.